What is up, guys? Wrestling Premiere is here. Now, you guys told me that I should make this a 3-part series. I should talk about the Chosen One, the second part I should talk about 3MB, and the third part I'll talk about Drew's redemption and how he made himself relevant to get to this point. It looks like he will finally climb to the top of the mountain at WrestleMania. Now, let's go back to a time where it was the assumption that Drew McIntyre will get there much earlier. In this video, I cover Drew McIntyre's Chosen One run in WWE. You guys reminded me of this when he won the Royal Rumble. By the way, that Royal Rumble was spectacular. Edge's return was something else. Yes, it was leaked, but the moment I heard You Think You Know Me, I was freaking out. Edge is back. Anyways, it's a great thing that Edge is back because we could see some great matches in the future. As for Drew McIntyre, he deserved the victory. I thought Roman's winning it, but they switched it up and had Drew win it in awesome fashion. Right now, let's focus on Drew McIntyre's Chosen One run. Drew McIntyre was already on WWE's main roster before 2009. He initially debuted in 2007, but he was sent back down to developmental. The Scottish Psychopath officially debuted on the August 28, 2009 episode of SmackDown. As Truth was entering the ring, McIntyre attacked him and he hit the Future Shock DDT on him. McIntyre then grabbed a microphone and said that people like to be entertained. They like to watch someone dance and rap. He then said his name and he left the ring. This was the official start of a Drew McIntyre and R-Truth feud. On the September 25th episode of SmackDown, Mr. McMahon came out to personally introduce Drew McIntyre to the ring. He put him over, and this was a clear sign that he was getting a push. I mean, if you're endorsed by Mr. McMahon, then you are doing something right. McIntyre from there beat R-Truth at Hell in a Cell, and he moved on to a feud with John Morrison. Before feuding with Morrison, he had a small program with Finlay. McIntyre won that one and decided to set his sights on the Intercontinental Championship. Drew McIntyre beat John Morrison on the December 4th episode of SmackDown, which basically made him #1 contender to the title. At TLC, Drew McIntyre defeated John Morrison to become the new Intercontinental Champion. Right after the match, Vince McMahon congratulated the Chosen One, and he told him that he expected this. McIntyre started off his reign with a DQ win against John Morrison. The Chosen One from there participated in the Royal Rumble match, and he lasted for about 15 minutes before being eliminated by DX. Following the Royal Rumble, McIntyre had a small feud with Kane, and this is most notable for McIntyre's winning streak getting broken, because he was undefeated up to this point. On the February 26, 2010 episode of SmackDown, Kane faced Drew McIntyre in a Money in the Bank qualifying match. Kane literally kicked him in the head and the streak was broken, that's all. He kicked him, boom, streak is over. A streak that lasted from September all the way up to February was ended with one single kick. The Chosen One in the following weeks was given more chances to qualify for the match. He lost to Matt Hardy the following week, and he was given one more chance by the boss, Mr. McMahon. McIntyre faced some jobber for the IC title and for the Money in the Bank spot, so it was 2 birds in 1 stone. He got to qualify in an easy match. This was because Vince wanted to have McIntyre in the match, so that is why he gave him all these chances. Drew didn't win that Money in the Bank match, which is quite weird to me because he was like one of the most hyped up men leading up to that ladder match because he was given 3 chances to qualify. Why didn't he win it? It's weird to me. He began a feud with Matt Hardy after WrestleMania. On the April 2nd, 2010 episode of SmackDown, Drew McIntyre attacked Matt Hardy during his entrance. The Chosen One destroyed Hardy and laid him out with a Future Shock DDT. They were supposed to compete in a match, but McIntyre thought otherwise. The following week saw the Chosen One beat Matt in a match, and from there, they competed in like 100 matches. Like, seriously, go search Drew McIntyre versus Matt Hardy. You'll find like 100 matches from this time period. Anyways, on the May 7th episode of SmackDown, Drew McIntyre interrupted Matt Hardy's promo, and it escalated into a brawl. The Chosen One ended up gaining the upper hand, and Teddy Long had to come down and stop this. He literally had to suspend Drew to stop the brawl. McIntyre didn't care, and Teddy Long stripped him of the IC title. He stopped for a bit, but then he continued fighting. Theodore Long decided to fire Drew. He was pissed. He's saying, once Mr. McMahon gets hold of this news. He's threatening them with Mr. McMahon, basically. Several officials escorted him out of the arena. In Drew's absence, Teddy Long held a tournament with the winner becoming the new Intercontinental Champion. Kofi Kingston ended up winning the tournament and the title, but then Drew McIntyre returned and crashed the party. The Chosen One handed Teddy Long an envelope. Teddy Long opened it while Drew had a smile on his face. Long read the letter and he threw it to the ground. He then apologized to Kofi and asked him to give McIntyre back his belt. That's messed up. Like, he literally handed him an envelope that said, I should get my title back, and Kofi went through a tournament and he had to give it back. Like, that's messed up. He then handed it to Drew, who thanked him and left the ring. He posed with the title as the fans booed him. At Over the Limit, Drew faced Kofi for the title. Kofi Kingston won the title, and after the match, he called for Teddy Long to reverse the decision. He took this treatment thing a little too far because he lost the match clean. Matt Hardy instead came out and delivered a twist of fate to the Chosen One. Drew, after this, feuded with Teddy Long. On the May 28th episode of SmackDown, Drew McIntyre had Matt Hardy suspended due to his actions at Over the Limit. Once again, Teddy Long couldn't nullify this action because it was from the boss, Mr. McMahon. The following week, the Chosen One failed to win the Intercontinental Championship after a suspended Matt Hardy interfered. Since Hardy interfered, McIntyre went to Vince and he got Matt Hardy suspended from all of WWE programming. Teddy was about to say something about this, but the Chosen One threw his mic on the ground. He then said that he has to do his job for him. He then shoved Teddy Long and Kofi Kingston interrupted. There was a fight between the two, but backstage, Drew gave Teddy Long the news. Next week, he's facing him in a match. Next week came and Drew told Teddy that the only way he could get out of this is if he listens to him. He then demanded that the SmackDown GM get down on his knees. He went down on his knees. Drew then instructed Teddy to lay down for him in the ring. Teddy, on the verge of tears, began to crawl and he laid down. The ref counted the fall and Drew was victorious. Teddy stood up and he was crying when Drew put his arm on him. He then attempted to hit the Future Shock DDT on him, but Kofi Kingston came out. Security pulled him away and the Chosen One decided to give Kofi some right hands since he was held by security. As Drew stood there, a wild Matt Hardy appeared and he was held by security for McIntyre to assault. The Chosen One hit the Future Shock DDT on both Matt and Kofi Kingston. At Fatal 4-Way, Drew McIntyre failed to capture the Intercontinental Championship after Teddy Long screwed him over. He forced Teddy Long to wear the referee's shirt and count to 3. Teddy counted to 2, but then he stopped. Drew didn't like this, and this led to Matt Hardy coming out and giving the Chosen One a twist of fate. Kofi Kingston capitalized on this by hitting the Trouble in Paradise for the victory. That week, SmackDown saw Teddy Long reinstate Matt Hardy, and he booked him in a match against Drew McIntyre. The Chosen One lost that match, and right afterwards, Teddy Long popped up on the screen, and he said that Drew McIntyre's visa expired. He then called for security to go out to the ring and send McIntyre back to Scotland. McIntyre shouted for Mr. McMahon, while Matt Hardy waved goodbye to the Chosen One. Now, Mr. McMahon got his ass kicked by the Nexus, so that's why McIntyre didn't have any special treatment. After resolving his visa issues in real life, cause they did this as a storyline, but in real life that actually occurred cause McIntyre's visa expired. After resolving his visa issues, McIntyre returned on the July 9th episode of SmackDown. He begged and pleaded for a spot in the SmackDown Money in the Bank ladder match. After doing all of that, he was given a match against Kofi Kingston. He qualified, and at Money in the Bank, he failed to win the briefcase again. I don't know why he didn't win it, to be honest. I know Kane won it, and it might have been better in hindsight, but it's weird how McIntyre was the most hyped guy heading into this. Same thing with the ladder match at WrestleMania. He was the most hyped up guy, like he had the most momentum in a way, and it's weird to me how he didn't win. From there, the Chosen One's WWE run was a bad one. First of all, he won tag team gold with Cody Rhodes, and that partnership didn't last long. They lost the titles after a month, and it wasn't even good. They lost the titles to the team of John Cena and David Otunga. Following that, he tried to get Kelly to be his girlfriend, and he acted like he was changing and stuff, and that didn't work out. He was later drafted to Raw, and I swear to God, I remember only 2 matches he was in. A tag team match with Jack Swagger, and that was like on the first week he was on Raw, and a Battle Royal for the IC title. Those are the only 2 matches I remember him in. He was mostly on Superstars, and there was hardly a chance of Drew McIntyre actually fulfilling the prophecy of being the Chosen One. Now, this is like the final chapter of the Chosen One story. Let me just talk about it right now. In December of 2011, McIntyre once again began a program with SmackDown GM Theodore Long. This wasn't a feud. This was mostly about McIntyre's career. Teddy Long on the last SmackDown of 2011 invited McIntyre to his office. He reminded the Chosen One of his feud with him. He then said that when McIntyre was on SmackDown, he was one of the fastest rising stars. Then he moved to Raw and his career went nowhere. He said that he can't be paying someone so much with terrible performances like McIntyre is. Like, he wasn't winning at all. He was getting his ass kicked by Ezekiel Jackson and guys like that. You know those guys in the mid-card in 2011? Those kinds of guys. McIntyre then said that if Teddy has any reservations about his ability to still get the job done, then he could watch his match against Ezekiel Jackson. He lost that match after being rolled up and Zeke held the tights for leverage. Right after the match, the Chosen One was in disbelief. The following week, Theodore Long booked the Chosen One in a match against Santino Marella. He lost that match convincingly, and Santino became Teddy Long's assistant due to the victory. Once again, Drew McIntyre lost the next week. He lost to Ted DiBiase. What does this man have to do to get a win? Because he was losing. He couldn't even win to save his life. On the January 20th episode of SmackDown, Teddy Long fired Drew McIntyre. Santino, the assistant, then said that Teddy should reconsider this decision. He said that he wants to face Drew McIntosh. Yeah, he literally called him that in a rematch because people were saying that this was a fluke victory. Theodore Long liked this idea and they spun the wheel behind them. It landed on a blindfold match. McIntosh once again lost. After continuing to find ways to get matches, McIntyre was finally fired on the March 2nd, 2012 episode of SmackDown. After losing a match to Justin Gabriel, Teddy Long popped up on the screen and he let Drew go. He was fired. The Chosen One was on the verge of tears. To be honest, I think he should have turned face around this time period because this was kind of depressing to see. Suddenly the next week, Drew came out to the ring. He said that he was here because of John Laurinaitis. Big Johnny was in charge of SmackDown that week, that's why. He said that the Raw GM had the wisdom and good business sense to know that he's the future. He then said that he is set to face a mystery opponent, and out came Great Khali. McIntyre was pissed. Then David Otunga came out and told Khali to have a seat at ringside. He then called for McIntyre's actual opponent to come out. It was Hornswoggle. Drew McIntyre kicked Hornswoggle's ass and he threw him around like a sack of potatoes. The referee stopped the match due to Hornswoggle being unable to compete, which meant that Drew McIntyre won, and most importantly, he's gotten his job back. He was given a headshot by the Great Khali after the match. The following week, Teddy welcomed the Chosen One back, and he mentioned that Drew signed a 1-year, no-cut contract last week. He then booked him in a match against the Big Show. Big Show kicked his ass. It's obvious. The Chosen One ended up replacing Christian in the Team Teddy vs. Team Johnny tag team match at WrestleMania. Team Johnny ended up winning, and Drew after WrestleMania was nowhere to be found. He was mostly on Superstars from there on until September of 2012, where he formed a partnership with Heath Slater and Jinder Mahal known as 3MB. And that's Drew McIntyre's Chosen One run in WWE. I don't consider him the Chosen One once he formed 3MB with Slater and Mahal, because it was clear that he wasn't going to climb back to the top of WWE. Alright, you guys want 3MB? If this video is successful, then I'll be sure to make 3MB as the next video, because I really loved that run. Despite them being jobbers and stuff, it was really entertaining. I will say that. Now, in that 3MB video, I want to cover the Florida and Heath Slater feud. It's so small, but I just want to mention it in that video. So yeah, that's it for this video. Make sure you hit a Future Shock DDT on the like button, and perhaps a Claymore kick on the subscribe button. Peace, I'm out.